Good evening. Today is Monday, March 1st, 2021. This is a special meeting and workshop with the Board of Education. We could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we have a pretty busy night for a workshop. We have two very important presentations, and then we actually have quite a bit of business for a workshop, but there's just some stuff that came up that's timely and needs to be addressed. Some of it's pretty good. Some of it's pretty exciting stuff. So let's just get right into the presentations, right? The first one is the I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, we probably should do that. That's probably a good idea to do that. Robin's always keeping me honest. Okay, do I have a motion to open the meeting? Open. Lori, Cynthia, second. All in favor? All right. Great. Okay, so the first presentation is the reopening plan update. I'm going to go over there so I can see.
If the board wants to come
Yeah, we'll come over there.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, board members, colleagues, family, and community members. We're excited that almost a year after the governor ordered the closure of schools, we will be offering all students full-time in-person instruction. Our district, with its committed administration, faculty and staff, and Board of Education, has always prioritized the needs of this community and its children. Tonight, we will share some of the information behind our decision-making process and preview the steps ahead. Let's begin by taking a look at the work and research that has led us to this point. It has been a turbulent year, but Tuckahoe has been resilient. The work of our district in the wake of this pandemic has been to enact a reopening plan that provides for the physical, safety, emotional wellness, and academic success of our students. This has required flexibility and creativity. Our students and staff's health and safety remains the core of this mission, and our plans ensure conditions that are safe and prioritize the delivery of in-person instruction. In July, we were among the first in our region to bring back students for full-time in-person instruction. Students in our self-contained special education programs joined us for in-person full-time instruction. Back then, we saw how well our students and staff were prepared for the challenges of a year affected by social distancing and face covering. Our special needs special class students and the wonderful summer school staff were perseverant and persistent. Over the summer, our team of administrators, and I really have hats off to them because they worked tirelessly, worked off the release of guidance from the state and Department of Health to rapidly turn around an intricate plan for the reopening of our schools. We worked closely with our teachers in multiple Zoom meetings. We created stakeholder reopening teams. We met with families in multiple webinars, one even at 10 o'clock p.m. to accommodate everybody's time frame. In September, we welcomed back all K-3 students to full-time in-person instruction, as well as all our special needs students and English language learners. This required repurposing our Cottle Gym, school library, and auditorium. Meanwhile, our teachers in grades 4 through 12 developed innovative hybrid lessons, helping to ensure all students felt welcome despite the setting of working from home at times. Technology training, instructional simulations, and intensive collaboration were all part of making sure we hit the ground running. In November, we expanded our full-time in-person instructional program to include the 4th and 5th grade after we repurposed our cafeteria and designed teacher workstations throughout the building. And Mr. Morash is here tonight, and I want to thank him and Pete Kilgallen and the whole team at Cottle for the work they did to make this happen so soon in the school year. As we moved toward February, there were changes in messaging and guidance that allowed us to open a conversation about returning all students. With time to review our protocol and processes and the opportunity to dive deeply into the research, our Health and Wellness Committee oversaw the return of high-risk athletics and our pivot to full-time instruction for all our K-12 students. This brings us to the content of this evening's presentation, the return for our students in grades 6 to 12 to full-time in-person instruction with an option for virtual instruction. It is important to underscore that none of these decisions has been made in isolation. The Health and Wellness Committee has been with the administration and our staff every step of the way. This committee convened in early summer when we created subcommittees on different areas related to reopening. Not surprisingly, this committee was called on most as we navigated the evolution of the pandemic. All stakeholders are part of this committee. We had community members, teachers, administrators, and staff, and this committee has really been instrumental in our planning process. This group came together before we brought our students back to Cottle. This group came together during the holiday break, when there were questions about whether or not we should institute a pause. Lastly, this committee convened multiple times over the past few weeks to help unpack new guidance and messaging from the CDC and the federal government. This committee, again, consists of local health experts, including experts in pediatrics and microbiology. It also includes educational representatives and community members. The conversations are robust, but are always centered around advancing what is best for our school community. We are fortunate to have this team of experts call on, and teachers and administrators who are innovative and care deeply. Finally, we listen to the needs of our students first. The research we reviewed was robust and included reports from the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. We also looked at experts out of Harvard University and Brown University. This led to the ultimate conclusion that there is power in a layered risk reduction. This includes social distancing to the greatest extent practical, but also masks and desk shields. Research highlighted the strain on students' academic, social, and mental well-being. There were startling reports of increased depression and isolation. Not being able to see students daily in person has meant that teachers are unable to attune to the specific needs of a child when demeanor or affect change. This also bolstered our intent to return as many students to our campus as possible. The review of the research and science was consistent with the New York State guidelines for reopening, which state that you must promote social distance at least 6 feet or through a partition. Lastly, our health professionals in the field shared in our committee meetings that despite being very close with symptomatic COVID patients, the use of a mask and hand washing had prevented them from contracting the illness. These are some of the mitigation factors currently at place in Tuckahoe. We have offered specialized masks to all faculty and staff and enforced face covering with all individuals on campus. On the break, our custodians and our administrators have arranged desks in the middle and high school, maximizing social distancing for our students, and procured desk shields. In recent studies, it was shown adults in school were more likely to transmit the virus than young people, so we also designed rooms allowing 6 feet of distance for teachers and adults. And at this point, I just want to thank Dr. Linehan, who has been relentless once the committee decided to bring students back to make sure that this plan is carefully done and that also teachers are a part of this discussion and that we bring them in on a rolling basis. So now we are going to shift our return to school counts. For planning, we needed to know the number of students interested in full-time or remote instruction. We had to go through the survey, clean it up as it contained some gaps and repeats, and then finalized it into roster reports we are going to share here. So those of you in 6th through 12th grade, you know that you took this survey. So when we issued this survey, this was the landscape. In January, 34% of students in grades 6 through 12 were attending school in the full virtual model. It had increased after Christmas. Meanwhile, 65% of students in grades 6 through 12 were attending school in the hybrid model, learning in person every other day. We are now going to present how preferences have changed when we offered this new full-time in-person model. We then asked the question, if all students were to come back with less than 6 feet of social distancing, of the hybrid learners, 96% indicated an interest in returning to full-time in-person instruction. We understand that there are families that would prefer not to return full-time to in-person instruction at this time due to their own circumstances. For this reason, our model maintains the full-time virtual option for those hybrid families. Most promising, you see the responses of our virtual learners here. Roughly half of our students who had opted for full-time virtual learning in September expressed an interest in returning to full-time in-person instruction in March. For the work of our Health and Wellness Committee, this statistic was transformative. It drove our efforts to resume full-time in-person learning while maintaining the option for families to learn, for students to learn remotely. In total, 83% of our students in grades 6 through 12 will be returning to full-time in-person. 17% of our students will continue to learn virtually. For many, this will be an exciting homecoming. You may remember that approximately 35% of our students in 6 through 12 opted to learn virtually. In moving forward with this model, that number is halved. We are excited to welcome back those learners into our building, and tomorrow will be the first day for 6th graders. We will have streamers and music and lots of pomp and circumstance for their return. The next steps. Now I will speak to the next steps. What should our families and students expect in the weeks ahead? Before I dive into details, I again want to acknowledge the incredible work of our district and building leaders and the collaboration, flexibility, and innovation of our teachers and staff. Here's the timeline to return to in-person instruction. Again, as I said, tomorrow we will welcome back our 6th graders to all that fanfare. Starting the week of March 8th, 7th and 8th graders will return. The week following, our high school students will return to full-time in-person learning. Dr. Lenahan, again, has been an incredible leader in this. He has handled this with the assistant principals and teachers and staff with laser focus and care for our school community. Dr. Lenahan has communicated extensively with families at the middle and high school, detailing all the specifics of schedules, transportation, and all the pieces that he has coordinated in order to bring our students back full-time with his assistant principals, with his teachers, and faculty and staff. Any family members with questions should reach out to the middle school, high school office directly. Again, I would like to finish by thanking the building administrators, our wonderful faculty and staff that enabled us to accomplish this important milestone. A special thank you to the Health and Wellness Committee for their expertise and guidance, to Fiona Higgins, our school nurse who has been with us every step of the way, Dr. Kilgallen, who just probably did not realize what she had in store for herself, and especially the Caligaris, and especially to the Board of Education for their support and their expertise and their care also in this. And the real heroes are the students, but I have to say as a parent, I really think the parents have been through a lot and they have been a hero in this, and I'm sure many of them are glad to see their students come back. And also the students who remain at the heart of all our efforts. Thank you. I am going to go into the budget presentation unless, Pete, you want to do questions or comments now.
I think maybe it makes sense to do that, and then we just do all the questions and discussion
Okay.
all at once. Yeah.
Okay. So tonight, Just going to switch the slides. Here's our budget planning presentation. Usually we do this at the regular board meeting the second week in March, but because we have so much on our plate this year with the reopening and also with a bond referendum that we will talk about a little bit tonight, that I wanted to make sure that the board and the community had an idea of our budget priorities. The overview for tonight with this budget planning presentation is to look at the Tuckahoe Union Free School District at a glance, the budget variables and drivers, enrollment and sections, budget additions and subtraction, and conclusion, which would be, at the end, an opportunity for discussion. Let's begin with a look at Tuckahoe and our points of pride, our accomplishment as a district, and the achievements of our students. As we have presented in our budget, our work is driven by a very specific mission to prepare every student for excellence. This work is motivated by 3 board goals that have led to our strategic plan and steer our work of our leadership team: to enhance academic performance for success in college placement, career planning, and global citizenship, to build and foster strong relationships between our district and the community we serve, and to ensure fiscal responsibility and sustainability. The budget we will present tonight moves us closer to achieving these long-term goals. As our strategic plan is based in 4 pillars. While Mr. Keogh and I have presented on this in previous meetings, I will remind our audience that our district-wide efforts are organized around the 4 pillars you see here. You will see the continuation of programs to help promote social and emotional learning, plan to further contemporary teaching and learning strategies, programs to meet the diverse needs of learners, and professional learning to build the capacity of our tremendous staff in accomplishing the ambitious goals we have set forth. Tuckahoe is a small district, and we have a lot to celebrate. This includes the support of faculty and staff. Our fine arts program has continued to flourish despite the obstacles of this past year, and our young performers continue to hone their craft through Zoom and Google Meets as well as in person. This year, we have been able to furnish each student with a Chromebook. Last year, we had grades 2 to 12 with a Chromebook. This year, we were able to do all students. You will see later on in the presentation how this disrupted our typical replacement cycle, and we will discuss how this will look in the budget going forward. Our innovation lab in the elementary school is just waiting for its opportunity to shine, and when we are able to get students back into regular classrooms, we are ready for the lab to engage students in hands-on collaborative learning experiences in the lab. We have used that space as classroom space this year. Our on-site technology coaches have assisted teachers every step of the way as faculty members have launched in-person, hybrid, and virtual lessons. The lessons learned from this year, the creative ways staff have immersed themselves in technology, will help to ensure instructional innovation in the years to come. Our athletic teams, despite being challenged by the rescheduled seasons, are so excited to be back and continue to be successful. In response to the pandemic, we initiated the TIGER program, standing for Targeted Supports and Interventions to Students at Risk. This time has visited all sorts of challenges on our students. And this program, which we just started very recently, channels academic and social emotional support to the students in the high school who need it the most. The Tuckahoe Union Free School District boasts, of course, a full continuum of special education programs prepared to support the diverse needs of our learners. We have research-based writing and literacy programs that are moving ahead full speed, the Writing Revolution and Wilson's Foundations. Our resource officer works closely with our building leaders, students, and families to promote safety. Our college-bound juniors and seniors are all given the opportunity to partake in ACT and SAT prep courses. Lastly, as I said in the previous presentation, we are one of the first in our region to return to full-time in-person instruction. This was a collaborative effort, as I said before, by our Health and Wellness Committee, our wonderful building and district administrators, our school nurse, Fiona Higgins, and Dr. Kelagaris, instrumental in all of this planning, and our teachers, who have worked very hard to ensure that all students receive what they need throughout the year. As conditions changed, so do they. Their focus on meeting students where they were, social, emotionally, and academically, has ensured that Tuckahoe stays ahead of the curve. These are all things for which Tuckahoe should be immensely proud of. And because of the things with which our district prides ourselves, we see our students soar. Some of their achievements are seen here, but it would take a much longer presentation to highlight all of the small wins, all of the kind gestures, and all the moments of collaboration and ingenuity that makes up the tapestry of student achievement at Tuckahoe. In academics, our students celebrate so far acceptances to top colleges, including Villanova, Tulane, and McGill. Our seniors have been awarded already almost $7 million in scholarships, and it's a very small class, and more than half will graduate with an advanced Regents diploma. Students benefit from our teachers' innovative approaches to connecting them to texts, an effort which led to our teachers being recognized by the New York State Reading Association this year. Our STEAM program and co-teach initiatives continue to support students' success. Our fully departmentalized fifth grade enables students to engage deeply with content. Our elementary students are exploring science phenomena through Science 21 program and are mastering the stepping stones of reading foundations. Meanwhile, in athletics, arts, and extracurriculars, our students receive all league, all conference, all section honorifics. All clubs this year are aligned with community service goals, and some of our students' proudest achievements are donations collected and senior citizens' snowy driveways shoveled out. Our oldest students participate in NISMA, while our younger students perform at City Field, a tradition we look forward to resuming. Our theatrical groups are working hard despite the challenges of the pandemic. Our art teachers are working hard across the K-12 spectrum and will be decorating the halls of Connell. As an educational leader in this district, it's hard not to be proud. These achievements drive our thinking about strategic planning and budgeting. Again, Tuckahoe leads the way. This year, despite logistical and budgetary challenges, Tuckahoe led the way with its traditional grit, creativity, and commitment to student learning. Just remember that just last year, a circle was drawn around New Rochelle, where the pandemic was starting, a containment zone, and it pulled in our two Tuckahoe buildings. We then were amongst to bring students back to campus with our special education students over the summer, and bringing in all the K-3 in September, and the hybrid and the virtual instruction, and by November having all elementary in person. We were the first to respond to a COVID-19 case on campus. With the first Westchester case, we worked closely with the Westchester Department of Health, and they used many of our response documents and contact tracing processes as a template for future incidents in the region. This year, we collaborated in invocation with our teachers and administrators. We launched block scheduling in the middle and high school so that students can be potted together, and redesigned facilities in the elementary school. All along, we rarely closed entire facilities. We understood the value to our students and community, so we did not overreact. We wanted to have school in session, and we always fought to keep our doors open. We continue to lead the way in the region and look forward to the weeks ahead where we continue to bring all students back on campus. We will now shift to our proposed budget. Before looking at some of the changes, we will explore the variables and drivers that impact our decision-making in developing this proposal. Here are some of the known variables driving the budget proposal we are presenting this evening. The tax cap is formulaic, and we are in the midst of calculating this, and I think Lee has gotten very far, and she will present that in a little while. The retirement system contributions, a percent of employees' salaries determined by New York State. Next year, the employer contributions rate will increase slightly over the 2021 rates. TRS increasing from 9.53 to 9.8, and ERS remaining flat. Health insurance premiums increasing 4% around. Fund balance utilization, this is the use of the district's savings to balance the budget. The amount needed for this year's budget, Lee is working on and will present. State aid, right now the district is working with the governor's executive proposal and consists of two types of aid, the foundation aid, which is no change over last year, and expense aid, which is the high-cost aid. In the governor's budget, total aid is projected to increase for us right now $23,000 next year. The district awaits the final budget after discussions between the legislature and the executive office. In terms of curriculum, we are determined to promote contemporary and progressive approaches to teaching and learning. This will require investments in our project-based learning and early literacy initiatives. You will also see this reflected in the budget presentation. Programs such as debate and entrepreneurship and materials to promote an alignment in ELA and math as students move from elementary to secondary school. Another known variable is technology. This includes, as I said before, addressing our one-to-one program. Another piece that we have to look at is debt services, which Lee will also discuss. It's pretty flat for 21, 22, and she will discuss some of this in her part of the presentation. Unknown variables, enrollment, we pretty much know it, but you never know it because people could be moving in and moving out. Special education placements, we are in the process right now of CSEs, and again, students are moving into our district for our programs. Non-tax revenue is also something that will be to be determined. State aid, we have some ideas about, but we're waiting on that. We are collective bargaining units, the TTA and CSEA. Contracts are now open. And again, the COVID-19 planning. We can explain that as we go forward with our budget presentation, but we did spend money on this. And we're hoping for reimbursement from the federal government. Now, enrollment and sections. As you can see in this next slide, that our enrollment has remained relatively stable. Here we look at Cottle School. In one column, you will see the general education enrollment and the number of sections. This ultimately leads to the average class size. It is broken down by grade, but if you direct your attention to the bottom row, the total, you'll see that our total enrollment is projected to remain stable, which means that we will maintain the same average class size and require no staffing additions to accommodate. So as you see, there's some movement around depending upon the number of students, but we should still be able to maintain our wonderful class size, which is very important to our board and our community. When we look to the general education curriculum enrollment at the middle school, you will also see very stable numbers. A slight increase in enrollment does lead to a slightly higher class size next year for 6th grade. And we will see what happens with that depending on kids who move in or stay in the school. And there could be, we could have larger class sizes, let's say in language arts or math classes, that may cause us to open up a section here or there because we do want smaller class sizes. But what we see here is very good for right now. Lastly, when we come to the high school, where because of many different course pathways, honors, regents, AP, and electives, it is impossible to calculate a representative average size and an informative staffing ratio. However, as you can see, enrollment has remained relatively stable, with again some promising growth as we move into next year. Tuckahoe is leading the way, and we want families of high school students to stay with us, all high school students to stay with us for this journey. We now move to budget additions and subtractions. With our enrollment stable and our strategic plan in full swing, we are looking to build on the positive. This means some changes in staffing. We are proposing to change our library program at the elementary school, infusing more reading and literacy opportunities into classroom instruction. You don't need a full-time librarian or a librarian in elementary school. But we are planning to add a consultant teacher to each grade. We did not have a consultant teacher for every grade, and by adding, by this sum balance of zero, net zero, that's how we're doing that. Meanwhile, we are looking to place a math lab strategically a .2 in the middle school math program to help address some areas in 7th grade math. At the high school, we want to write our successful Tiger program into the budget. This requires a 1.0 position. Again, the Tiger program is Tuckahoe's Instructional Guidance Educational Result Program. And we did see that some kids were really struggling during the pandemic, and we want to be able to support them this year and especially next year so they graduate on time and we give them all the support that they need. Our strategic plan details the types of offerings and opportunities we want to provide our secondary learners. How can we help them see the world from where they are in Tuckahoe? We believe engaging extracurriculars that focuses on strengthening academics and technology and innovation will do that. We are proposing an additional $25,000 for equipment, advisors, travel, participation fees, and supplies. We want to see students hone their skills of the rhetoric and debate and their talents for logic and chess. Looking ahead to the skills needed in today's rapidly changing workplace, robotics, coding, and web designs will help set our students apart. Interwoven into all these initiatives are links to our strategic plan goals and a commitment to our community. For example, our web design club can add a student voice to our district web presence, as students can take a leadership position in curating media and increasing accessibility and even helping us with our web design. Meanwhile, to assess and target our interventions around social and emotional learning, the Panoramic School Climate Survey will provide us with data and metrics. Using their nationally normed statistical interface, we can review responses with an eye toward continuous improvement. As we move to having all students back, identifying benchmarks and reviewing strategic goals aligned with student, staff, and community perception data will be critical. This survey will support these efforts. On another night, we will go into some of the clubs that we did this year, and also in another board meeting, a lot of what I'm discussing here will be discussed by our principals and our wonderful new addition of our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mr. Kehoe. So the next two slides walks us through some of the proposed changes to curricular budgeting spending. These include our reading and literacy initiatives, such as expanding foundations to 3rd grade and identifying a new reading program to our kindergarten teachers to pilot in the 2021-22 school year. We are also moving toward using novel studies more intensively in grades 3 to 5 and supplementing these units with Newsleah, word study, and grammar skills resources. We will be moving away from the basal reader program of Reading Wonders in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade so we can begin connecting students with more relevant, rigorous texts. So Newsleah packages together primary source documents, news articles, and more to help teachers and students learn about a particular subject. This will replace Freckle, which was a reading differentiation program. So the cost of that is positive. In moving away from Reading Wonders, the kindergarten team will pilot a reading program that supports the Foundations curriculum. Costs will be offset by reduction in Reading Wonders annual subscription. Last year, as far as Foundations, we budgeted $60,000 to launch Foundations with grades K to 2. This year, we are looking to launch grade 3. This cost here covers the materials and the training. With a word study or skills resource, 4th and 5th grade students will be using the novel studies and not a basal Reading Wonders program. We want a word study or skills resource that will help address spelling, grammar, phonics, and vocabulary standards. Again, with the novel study, we want to enhance what we have done before with it. We want to provide with a more diverse selection of books, but this will require new texts and time for the teachers to develop units. Meanwhile, at our middle and high school, we are looking to create a stronger bridge in the math program to what is being done at the elementary school. Transitioning to middle school is a big shift for a young learner, so creating this consistency in a conceptually rigorous content area is important. This change in the budget includes professional learning and curricular materials to launch our 6th and 7th grade teachers into using the Envision program. The cost there is reflective of a 2-year agreement. We are also looking to expand our online learning options, which would provide our students with access to more APs and advanced course offerings. Speaking of advanced course offerings, our entrepreneurial course is an exciting new offering that we want to launch, that Dr. Linehan and Mr. Kehoe have worked closely with a staff member on developing a course that explores the foundations of entrepreneurship, including prototyping and marketing. We are developing learning experiences that are project-based and will help our students to solve real-world problems and to market and promote those solutions. So the Envision programs is for grades 6 and 7, and it builds on the success of the elementary Envisions program. We purchased these materials. Again, it's a deeply conceptual math program, and it's aided by visual models, student-centered projects, and tasks and personalized learning, and the cost is $16,000. Online learning is in line with the strategic plan, increased opportunities for courses, offerings such as advanced placement courses, and that's an increase in what we have done before. Increase 10,000, increase to 28,000 overall. And the entrepreneurial course, the purpose of this course is to introduce students to the fundamentals of entrepreneurship and provide an authentic learning experience for students in establishing, investing, and managing their own business. District-wide, we are moving toward a direct progress monitoring service. Response to Intervention Direct is a service that will aid us in conceptualizing data, analyzing work samples, and monitoring progress. We are training users on the system this year, and next year our instructional support teams will be able to use this repository to monitor the different tiers of response to intervention and multiple systems of support. Additionally, in grades K to 8, we have used the STAR Renaissance program as a means of benchmark and diagnostic assessment. In an early pilot, we used iReady with a handful of students in the elementary school to analyze its strengths in providing both enrichment and support. Teachers and students responded positively to the system, its user-friendly interface, and targeted interventions. Mr. Kehoe and Mr. Morash have worked closely with the vendor to expand this pilot to all students K-8 free of charge for the remainder of this school year. Introducing this in September, our staff will be prepared to hit the ground running. And again, you can see these. The RTI is $8,000. The iReady is $13,400. Our strategic plan is bold. In order to further our faculty's skill set, in order to accomplish these goals, we are looking at supporting training in literacy and project-based learning. While these budgeted changes are presented here, we are still looking at what can be incorporated into this year's spending so as to mitigate the ultimate proposal and costs. We are excited to move forward on project-based learning for our secondary students through a partnership with PBL Works through the Buck Institute. Their work with local districts such as Bronxville has helped to create engaging, relevant lessons to address local and national issues. Their work has helped to infuse project-based learning into school systems. We are also planning to continue strengthening our reading and literacy program for elementary learners by supporting our foundations expansion to 3rd grade and by training special education teachers in the Wilson reading system. Expansion of foundations will ensure that students K through 3 receive explicit instruction in fundamental skills for reading, and spelling, phonemic awareness, phonics study, high-frequency word study, fluency, vocabulary, handwriting, and spelling. For students in need of support that is aligned with an Orton-Gillingham-based program, our special education teachers, as interventionists and special education teachers, would be trained in the Wilson reading system, ensuring a comprehensive and holistic reading approach for all learners. When looking to technology, we need to issue replacements to students in 6th, 7th, 9th, and 10th grade. All of these devices have reached or surpassed their end-of-life expectancy. When we prioritized getting devices for our younger students, we had to disrupt our planned replacement cycle for 6th and 9th graders. By instituting an installment purchase agreement, we can resume our schedule this year. We are also setting money aside for replacement interactive whiteboards, which have been used a great deal this year. But in creating new spaces, we invested in some mobile boards that might mitigate some of this replacement, and that's why it's only $15,000. We are also setting aside funds for a website improvement project. Ms. Tuckahoe is working closely with our webmasters, reviewing local sites and assessing our current site's strengths and weaknesses. This may include the purchase of cameras, video, and photo editing software and hardware. Lee, do you want to talk about these next few slides?
Sure. So right now, as we're finishing one capital project and we're about to embark on the discussions of a next capital project, it's an opportunity to discuss the annual transfer that we made from our regular budget to take care of small infrastructure and maintenance and renovation needs. So what we are proposing this year in the one-year space, most likely between projects, is to increase our annual transfer to capital by $200,000 to allow the district to make annual renovations, upgrades, maintain and improve buildings and grounds, and take care of infrastructure needs. This increase will be offset partially by a reduction in operations and maintenance annual budget, so as to provide for a capital line where we can look to take care of that in this year's budget, and if not completed this year's, that money will be held aside for future projects in that capital line. On the revenue projection side, this is just a high-level look at what's happening with our revenues. Right now, I've been working with the Office of the State Controller, and we've been taking a look at our maximum allowable tax cap for next year. Right now, we're looking at a district's allowable tax cap increase, when we factor in all the components of the tax cap formula, would be allowed up to 2.7%. However, I'm recommending a tax levy increase of 2.37%, which is approximately $690,000 additional tax levies to the district. But as you can see, as you look through the presentation at state aid, our foundation aid is zero. I unfortunately didn't correct Dr. Goodman's presentation earlier. The state aid are zero. We have zero for the foundation aid. That's what the money that we get from the state as a block grant that the district can use any way it sees fit. That's flat. What we are seeing an increase in, as we took a look at the numbers, are our expense-driven reimbursements next year will go up $175,000, we believe, until that's finalized by the legislature. But again, those state aids are driven by the expenses that we have previously spent. So those are not ongoing, recurring numbers that we can expect to see in revenues in the future. Those are dependent on what we spend each year. The one number that we do see that we use for ongoing expenses is our foundation aid, and right now the governor's proposal has that flat. And then on the last line, you can see that other revenues that we typically use to provide for our budget are reduced next year by $600,000 approximately. So pretty much almost the same amount as our tax levy we are losing in other revenues, and those are reductions in regular and special ed tuitions from other school districts, which we are still calculating, but we do see a decline for next year. Some students have graduated, and there are other reductions there. We have the loss of facilities rentals that occurred once the pandemic struck, and we're not anticipating to see many of that, or much of that come back, at least initially. We've also had a big reduction in interest income, as interest rates are now virtually zero. So that's been a big change. And other revenues that we typically provide for with our expense budget are relatively flat. For example, sales tax, we believe will be flat year over year. We're waiting to see third quarter numbers. So finally, once we get a bottom line expense line, we will also be appropriating fund balance to balance our budget as we have in previous years. And when we present on March 15th, when we have a firm expense line, we will take a look at what that will entail. Finally, I wanted to talk about a proposed capital project that the board and the Facilities Planning Committee has begun to discuss. The idea is to consider a project that would be voted on by the voters, possibly at the May budget vote meeting. And in order to do this, the board will discuss at their next meeting on March 15th, the various proposals that the committee has reached a consensus on and would be providing to the board, including completing the Cottle Field, various large renovations to spaces at Cottle and the middle school, large infrastructure needs to both buildings that can't be taken care of on an annual basis, and ventilation upgrades to both buildings are some of the projects that have been discussed by the Planning Committee. They are meeting again next week, and they will make a more detailed presentation and recommendation to the board at their March 15th meeting. This capital project is not part of the regular budget. This would be voted on by the district separately, and it would be funded by a bond as well as some reserves that we have to cover a few of the projects if they do materialize the way they're discussing.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you for the opportunity to share a preliminary budget presentation. Special thank you to Mr. Chris Keogh. He's been instrumental in putting together a lot of the curriculum and instruction, to the building principals, and to teachers who helped us with our strategic plan, and to Leolu and Faith Sparks for working on the financial part of the budget. We will have much more in-depth on that on the 15th. And again, the highlights of the budget we're proposing supports positive class size. We are also excited that this budget allows for professional learning and new programs that promote innovation and critical thinking. These new programs can be presented to the board at the March 15th or the next work session. The principals are working on a presentation with Mr. Keogh. The budget reflects a focus on early literacy and expanding math coherence. It also expands opportunity for advanced courses by introducing more opportunities for students, also with our extracurriculars. Our proposals are linked directly to our strategic plan. We appreciate the support, again, always of the board and communities as we enact a plan that prepares every student for success. We look forward to presenting again any developments in the week ahead, certainly in a curriculum presentation to the board and more fine-tuned financial processes. The budget, again, will be adopted on April 20th, and the community will be asked to vote on it by May 18th, so we have time. There is also the capital project that the board will want to talk about. I welcome any questions or comments, and so does Lee, about what our budget priorities are. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those presentations, really informative, a lot of good stuff in there, probably a bunch to discuss. So let's start with first having a brief discussion or any questions or comments about the reopening plan first. Let's do that first, and then we'll move into the budget presentation. Cynthia, you want to start?
All right, I guess I just had, both presentations were phenomenal, gave a lot of information, but a couple of things, I guess, with the first presentation on the reopening. What is the projected for the middle school, high school in regards to the number of students that will, I know it ranges, because obviously every grade is different, an approximate range of in each classroom?
You mean the number of students in the
Yeah, that would
classroom?
be in,
I think it does range. Most of the classrooms are 3 feet apart. There are some classrooms, some special education classrooms that were able to maintain the 6 feet, so they won't have the partitions on the desks. But it is, and again, we're striving for 3 feet.
Right.
The way and we got more clarification from the state, at least from the person who spoke to the state, our superintendent group leader, that it's 6 feet or a divider. So again, we strove for 3 feet because of the Health and Wellness Committee, but it may not be exactly that, as students may want to come back to the district. We have a preliminary number, and we want to make sure that we can bring people back as they want to come back. But the classes are, they don't quite look like they did before. It still is not a regular classroom, but there are a lot of desks and chairs in the classroom.
so it could likely be then the same number, like what people
Or-
used to if everyone comes back.
Right.
All right, yeah, I was just curious.
And more so in the middle school, I think, right, Mr. Keough? Yeah, no, I don't mean the percent. I mean how the classrooms look. They're full.
Yeah, we work with the class size, and we hope the best in terms of everyone returning, and then need some changes based on the virtual. So the classrooms consist of roughly the expected number of desks.
Right.
But how they look really kind of depends on the layout of the room.
Right.
I think you're probably used to classrooms where desks are right next to each other or grouped together. Tables, not what they look like.
They're very much like Cottle now too. We didn't have, kids are in very traditional rows. There are some classrooms like science classroom where kids will be at a table 3 feet apart and they each have their partition. But one of the things that the Health and Wellness Committee really talked about is that the partition is an extra mitigating piece, but the masks are really important. And if you have all seen the information that's out there about double masking and KN95 masks that are available, that's probably I think if the state really thought about it, that we probably could do that without the partitions.
Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
we discussed at the Health and Wellness Committee meeting that the 6 feet initially was without masks.
Right.
Right.
It's
Yep.
estimating when you're talking in normal speech, when will those droplets hit the floor and therefore not infect you. So the fact that we have masks mandated at our school, to me, is the most important thing, and that is what reduces disease spread. And I think we just have to focus on that and make sure that, we're doing
Yep.
the partitions to be in compliance with state mandates, but when you look at it from a scientific reasoning and justification, the masks are what matter, and kids need to be in school. That is without a doubt been proven more so than anything else with COVID for their mental health and for their academic success. And I feel like we are never going to know for a very long time what the long-term repercussions of this will be on people, I was saying at that meeting also, we have, like within my subspecialty, at Yale, we cannot find mental health providers. Places that would normally they're not even adding to their wait list. It's really a problem. So I applaud you, Dr. Goodman, and Mr. Morash, and Dr. Linehan, Mr. Keough, everyone who's been involved in getting these kids back, because it is so important.
Yep.
And everything is a risk. The
Oh,
idea that
right.
it will be
Yep.
no risk involved, to me, is ludicrous, because we all get in our cars, and that is a risk. So put on your seatbelt, get your mask, go back to school.
Yep. And tomorrow's going to be a great day. for
It
sixth
is.
graders.
It's gonna
We're
be
very
great
excited.
energy. It's like at the vaccine clinics. You'd swear it was like Christmas morning.
And the teachers
Now-
are very excited. They're
Just
very
out of
excited. Lots
curiosity, because that is a great thing, and the kids will be excited about it. Are you doing that in each phase of the
Yes, we have
Nice.
I'm not going to say.
Very nice. No, don't ruin the surprise.
sure they're not
That's-
watching this, though.
Fireworks.
That's
Yeah, but
nice.
if you know what's
You got better
happening
things to do than watch
tomorrow,
this.
I hope they're watching it. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, the parents maybe, but not the
Yeah.
kids. There's no way.
Yeah.
Anything else, Cynthia? Is that good?
No, I mean, it all looks good. I was just thinking, like, hearing, like, out there, people wondering what is the logistics of it. Another thing I've heard is how are the kids going to transfer? Like, even some of the questions I'm asking are not so much
Right.
that I'm concerned, but I hear out there, like, people are wondering, well, how many kids are going to be there? How are they going to get the kids to go in the hallway? They're all going to be in the hallway. So
Right.
all those, like,
So we have all the
logistical.
things we had for the, the one-ways and all of that.
Mhm.
That, I think we saw after a while, too. Like, we're not the school district of Georgia where they showed like a million
Right.
kids in the hallway. We never have that. But we'll have kids moving along the hallway, and there's directional ways that they can move, and the hybrid kids already know about it. But we're not an overcrowded school in any way.
Right.
Again, with the, people may be wondering what's going to happen with the quarantining. It was 6 feet, we have to take anybody more than 10 minutes within 6 feet, and since we are 3 feet, the student who's 3 feet and the student who's 6 feet could be in that group of quarantining, but it's not going to be quarantining like we did at the beginning of the year where everybody was quarantined. The state has a much more measured, smart plan. We really, in some ways, didn't know as much as what we're doing as we do now. A lot of teachers are vaccinated. That's another real, it's the adults that really were the most at risk with all this. We're still keeping the adults 6 feet apart. And the quarantining in the CDC is if you're 2 weeks after your second inoculation, you don't have to quarantine. But New York State has not put that into effect yet, and we're hoping that they do because that's such a plus of being inoculated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something that I did hear, too, with the quarantining. I think some people are worried, even kids, being quarantined if you're going back and playing sports, because the seasons are so short.
I heard that too.
So that is a true concern that,
We're
that they
still,
have.
for those people who want it, we still have the remote option open. And there are, as you can see, there are families that for different reasons are choosing that. But, a lot of the kids and the parents want their students to be back. Actually, we saw in Cottle, first we didn't think there were that many, and now I only think about 10% of the kids are remote. So we really end up with people wanting to come back. But, there are some kids that, for whatever reason, are learning well 100% remote. I'm not going to say there isn't. There are some kids that are benefiting from that for whatever reasons. But a lot of kids really do better being in person. But again, families have different issues, kids have different issues, so it is an option. There's just no hybrid option anymore.
Right.
It's either full-time in person or remote. That's it. And
And
that's
if
why you see
people are
some of
remote
those
and then
hybrid
want to
moving.
switch, is there like a deadline, or
Well,
is it a rolling thing?
we have told people that we, part of our planning, and it's really been hard at the middle school and high school because of, the uniqueness of being a small school. But we will, Dr. Linehan will see, if there is space, we will try our best. We did make it a commitment, but now that we're hearing that, it doesn't have to exactly be 3 feet, hopefully the state doesn't change that. We'll be able to squeeze kids in as time goes. And we'll do it in a fashion of the room that we have. So there are kids that, will want to come back, and we'll try to make every effort to keep that as an option for students.
Yeah, I guess I think about, too, because every time there's a break, we run into the thing if people are traveling, which we have one coming up and everyone's going back full-time. So if someone travels and then needs to take, for whatever reason, if they go somewhere and has to quarantine and they are full-time in person, they have to
We
quarantine, they'll have the ability to come back, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want students to keep everybody safe. We want people to follow the guidelines of traveling, which you have to put in when you travel, and when you come back into New York, it's very strict. They check what you put in. They let you know how long you have to quarantine for. If kids aren't feeling well, stay home. the remote option is there. We don't want to, and if you know that for whatever reason that your family or your child may have engaged in unsafe behavior, or people in your family aren't feeling well, that's where we're seeing the spread is in families. So we're asking, if you think that you have COVID symptoms, go get a test, but let your child stay home too, because that's where we're seeing much more of the spread is in individual families and not in our school. But if you start to bring it in the school, then we're going to have a rocky year. So yeah, we have it. You can go remote. We just don't want families saying, "Oh, I think I'll travel to Florida right now because it's less expensive, and my student will go on a laptop or on a Chromebook." That is not a legal reason to go remote, and we will not. Teachers are frustrated, not quite with that. People aren't doing quite that, but they, school should be the number one importance for people. But if, again, any illness, any traveling, stay home, explain it, let the school nurse know, let the school or the building administration know, we will work with you.
Yes, do you need do you need some sort of approval to go from in-person to remote? It has to be sort of approved
Yes.
by whom?
You can't just show
By the teacher,
up.
by the principal?
By the principal. You can't just show up one day and say, I'm coming every day. We really have been very careful. We're still ordering the partitions, they're not even all in, and that's why it is good that we're doing this rolling reopening. It's not that quick to turn this whole thing around, so we're waiting for some.
Okay. Therese, you have any additional comments?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, Laura?
I don't really have. I think, just echo with Therese and Cynthia, and I think that, I think it's a good time. I think timing is great as far as the numbers are going down and down, as far as just a state and just specifically our area. So hopefully, everything goes smooth. And I want to thank you also, Dr. Goodman, and the administrators and custodial staff working real hard to get those classrooms in compliance. So we really appreciate everyone's due diligence and hard work. And I'm telling you, the kids, to Therese's point, and I can tell you firsthand, it's this, remote learning for a vast majority of them is tough. And I can just speak from my two are very excited to come back. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Lori?
I agree with all that's been said. So the classrooms will still be set up like in the gym, everything's still like that. They're not going to be back into their individual classrooms like they were, right? Or what I should say is pre-pandemic. They're not going back to that with the less than 3 feet.
So in the 6th to 12th grade, the gym is being used as a cafeteria.
It's going to be that will remain
and
the
we
same.
We bought these new desks so that we can put them all on a cart, and we can have basketball and volleyball there. Coddle right now is not changing back. I mean, that is something that we can look at as we do this. I mean, our Health and Wellness Committee said, wow, Coddle is doing so well. Less focus on 6th through 12th grade.
Okay.
So right now, Coddle is as it was with classes in the gym and not having the cafeteria. It's not to say that we can't move that way this year back to getting some of our space and getting back to more normal. But right now, the Health and Wellness Committee said let's focus on 6th through 12th grade.
Okay, good. And then I just had some questions, question or two about the curriculum piece. Loved everything that I saw, especially infusing critical thinking into it. I'm actually doing my dissertation on that, so that's like real big for that's like my love passion. So, so what I did want to know was the curriculum plans that you have in place, the professional development piece of it. What does that look like? Because sometimes we implement these things and then we say, here it is, and then we do a pilot, and then maybe there's some turnover, teach the teacher type model, but it happens maybe a couple times a year, and that certainly isn't enough to make sure that the program is integrated into our curriculum the way that it really should be. So I just wanted you to, if you could, I know it's sort of premature, but it shouldn't be at this point because you're talking about bringing this stuff in. So I'm just curious about the professional development that the teachers will have.
One of the things that we changed from last year to this year that I explained last year is there's no more of this, I'm going to go to this staff development, and individual teachers. getting valuable for them information and no carry through. With Mr. Keogh and the building principals, this is initiatives. It's not just like, oh, go to this like great little professional development and nothing to bring back. Teachers it'll be continuous learning, continuous types of PLCs on, you know, how are we using this, how are we doing this. So it's not just the training, like in the foundations, it's not just the training. We are working with teachers. Actually, we have a consultant working with them right now. The Wilson is, for example, is very intensive. I mean, you have to do a whole like internship pretty much, you know, under directions of a professional to be certified in Wilson training. And it will take a while because people are at different levels. Some people have the 3-day training. If you go for the year training, that's the one that's very expensive, but it's very intense. And the reason it's so expensive is because there's a lot of staff development. The same thing with the PBL. It's continuous. It's not, as you said, as you're learning, you know, with your dissertation, it's not just, you know, here and now, goodbye. It is continuous learning.
And so there definitely is an expectation that teachers are fully implementing these models in place, because, you know, that's the other piece, right? So we bring in these initiatives, but then administration isn't following up to make sure that there's full integration. I'm not saying it happens here, but that does happen.
And you can see it, for
so I'm
example,
making sure.
with Envisions, you know, that there's been
So there's
complete
evidence of
follow-up, there's
implementation.
evidence, they use the program. The same thing with foundations, and they meet with the principal, they meet in teams of grade level or cross-grade level, they meet with Mr. Keogh. There are some consultants that work with them too, depending upon, you know, if it's something like foundations or something as complex as Wilson.
Right.
But it is, it's not just, oh, you know, superintendent's conference day, you all sit in a room and you learn something. It's continuous.
Right. And then the data that comes back from, for example, Wilson, what is that looking like for driving instruction for children who are exceeding grade level? You know, those kids who are higher achieving, and then those children who are working below grade level, but they aren't special education.
Right, so that's why we're bringing in those two systems that we said today, which was the RTI, which monitors students that are struggling, and it evaluates them and monitors them so that they don't get lost in the, you know, is this intervention working or not? You know, Wilson has their own in there also, but moving away from the STAR, which is not as intricate as already, which is what we brought in. And again, I don't want to get too in-depth because I know that Mr. Kehoe and Mr. Morash and Dr. Linehan will be presenting on this, but it is we're going to be very, and we have been, but we're going to even improve on the database that we're looking at to see where students are. Individual students, groups of students and individual students. We don't want to just rely on the state test. We want to make sure that what we have in place is robust. And again, like in some areas like project-based learning, we're going to look at that a little differently than, you know, just what did the student get out of the test, you know, out of some assessment. We want to see the real-life projects that kids can put together in the entrepreneurial class, in the project-based learning, but also always looking at their reading skills, their math skills, to make sure that those writing skills are in place.
And then the project-based learning, which is the PBL, for those people who don't know, the RTI is response to intervention, for people who don't know what that means. For the project-based learning, will some of those be community centered? Or is it just in class, you know?
No, it could be solving
it'll be community
issues
within
That's the whole thing. It could be the community, or it could be the, you know, what's happening in the world.
Right.
So
Doesn't
that's
necessarily have to be
the
here.
great thing about project-based learning.
Good, very good, awesome, thank you.
All right. Well, I had a few comments about the reopening plan before we moved on to the budget. And one question I had for that was busing transportation. Is there any issues with that? Or are we equipped and ready to take on additional commuters if that's the case?
Yeah, and the busing transportation, again, we have a lot of parents that drive their students to school, and that's a great thing. because the social distancing on the bus is not the most ideal. I think we're trying to do every other seat
Right.
as
And
much as we
masks,
can,
mandatory
and masks.
And windows open.
Windows open, hatch open, but, we have seen with the bus that sometimes we have to quarantine more than, than we would like to, depending upon where the student was sitting and all of that. But
So
middle
it's-
school, high school buses, which is where we're moving kids into, not, those buses, some of those buses have plenty of space because kids don't, some kids do not take the bus to school.
So we didn't reduce any busing.
We didn't reduce, we had added busing.
We added
so
buses.
We
One
didn't add
additional
anything
bus.
extra.
Right.
And the way the buses have been running, I believe they've been putting that extra bus for the high school, middle school run on the area of this village where there's the most need for busing, which is probably the most far from the school. So they're trying to rearrange the routes so that they have an additional bus kind of following around, picking up any overflow if the buses do get crowded.
Okay.
And we'll have to wait and see how it plays out as the kids start to go back to school, where the demand is.
Right.
But it's not a new bus, it's a bus.
No, it's the same. We still have one additional bus for the whole year that we've been
Right.
running. We started with 3 additional, we went down to 2, and then down to 1.
But at this point, are we requiring them to sit apart? Or if the bus happens to be crowded, can they sit next to each other, or that's not allowed?
We only allow siblings and people from the same household to sit together. They're supposed to be sitting apart.
Okay. All right. So we're not concerned about when everything's opened up in the next 2 weeks, at the middle school, high school, there being an influx of passengers and us not being able to handle that?
No, and because we are staggering it in, we'll start to see if we're really getting the numbers that would require changing the number of buses.
All right. But obviously, we want to encourage parents to drive if they can. It's better.
Yeah, and kids who can walk, we're
Or walk, yeah.
encouraging that
Spring's
they
coming.
do that. It's the weather, except for tomorrow, it looks like we're going to be unfortunately, the 6th graders are coming in tomorrow, but we have great weather coming ahead in the 50s, I think on Wednesday and next week, so people can start to walk. It's healthy, you need the fresh air.
I know, kind of a silly question, I'm just curious, though. I know extra help has been virtual. With this change, will it flip-flop, or will it be in person, and then what will the remote students do for extra help?
I don't know if Dr. Linehan sent out his letter yet. Did he send it out yet?
I don't know. but I
Okay,
know
so-
he is planning to send out communication.
Yeah, he's going to
Okay.
send out
Okay.
information, so I
Okay.
don't want to jump in.
Okay,
but
that's
that is
fine.
something that we have really been thinking about, how to do it and how to do it in person. So, but also, we know before a test that there could be so many kids coming up that we may not be able to handle it. So he has,
He has a plan.
believe me, he's thought everything
Okay.
out. I thought he might have sent it, but I don't think he sent it yet.
Okay. And then my last question was just in terms of lunch and break, right, recess for the kids coming back, how is that going to be handled? They still going to be eating at their desks, I assume, right?
Right, well,
the-
it's a
Or
little
in the-
different.
The gym?
So
The gym.
it's different than the elementary school, so kids we're going to have assigned seating so that we know if a kid's infected, who has been sitting around them. We will encourage, and this is what schools are doing. I know this might be hard for Tuckahoe students, but I've spoken to the Department of Health. I've done a lot of research on eating, which is the most, risky part because we know masks are so important. That the recommendation is that, so everything's about the 10 minutes, that you eat your lunch and with your mask off as quickly as you can, then you can put your mask on and talk. So we're looking at a silent, really focused lunch of eating, and then put your mask back on. And that's what a lot of schools that have been open, not in New York, because there haven't been that many, that have been doing in the research that we've been doing. So we're going to encourage that. We are going to, we're going to do the high school a little differently of when we're going to allow juniors to leave, but, to free up some space. But we have a plan for the cafeteria, the best that we can. Because we have seen that when we do have a positive student in the cafeteria, we have to go 12 feet. And if there's less than 10 minutes, we don't have to go to 12 feet. So 12 feet in all directions will take in a lot of kids. So again, keep your child home if they're sick, if there's sickness in the family, and hopefully kids can understand that if you eat and you focus on your eating, you put your mask on and then enjoy your friends.
But they enjoy the same place. They don't go anywhere. They stay right there.
Right. But, kids can go outside, the weather's
They
going
can
to
go
be
outside.
nice, and then we could look at eating outside and all of that. as the weather gets nicer.
Would it be projected that there will be an increase in vaccines starting by the end of this month, March?
Well, let me tell you, I'm very excited. First of all, I want to thank Elmira Adino, because I have reached out to pretty much everybody I knew to see how teachers can get vaccines. So first of all, I think I told you when I knew it was open for schools, I stayed up all night at like 5:30 in the morning. I sent a robocall and I said, check your email. And many of our teachers, by 9 o'clock it was over. Many of our teachers and our staff got the very first doses that were offered in that first week or that second week to teachers and staff. So we were very lucky. So a lot of our staff already has had the second dose, right? Then then I started to reach out to people because I was like, I gotta get it for the rest of the people. And Elmira really came through. She's a village trustee, and I really have to thank her because there were some teachers that really had mitigating issues and really, really wanted the vaccine. Then after that, again, I want to thank County Executive Latimer. I think that the county has worked really well with the school districts and really well with us in particular. We've had very great success, and on Saturday they offered slots to all Tuckahoe teachers and staff who wanted it, which was just like a great day because when you go, you're not going to miss any part of school doing it on a Saturday. And every teacher or staff who wanted a vaccine, and I also had another connection a different day, have gotten access to it. So I don't think anybody who wanted it can say that we haven't worked hard to help them get that vaccine.
That's great. It's really good.
Thank you to Trustee Adino for that. I really appreciate that, not just as a board member, but as a community member in this. We do need our people to work with us to get the vaccines needed. But with the vaccines that might be coming up, Johnson & Johnson has one, with it maybe being opened up to more people than just, first contact people or whatever. Does it look like that the seating and all of these things will change as more people get vaccinated? Because maybe it'll work its way to children, too.
It is. They talked about it, I think, on the news today. I was hearing it when I was driving in on, bringing it down to, keep on bringing it down to the age group. They said until they bring it down to the students like under 12 years of age, that will be into next year, is what I heard they were saying. Everything, first Johnson & Johnson's was going to have $1 billion, and now they have, I forget how many hundreds of thousands, and, it keeps changing, but I do believe that it looks like the Johnson & Johnson, and probably Therese, you probably know more about it, looks like it's a good vaccine. It's a one-shot. And it has, we can't go by, it has very good reliability for not getting serious illness, for not being hospitalized. And nobody of the group of the study got hospitalized that took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It has good results, and I believe it's going to get us.
I think we're focused on vaccine, which is important, but there are people who also really support the idea that we're closer to herd immunity than what we actually think or know at this point, and that will only be well understood when you see the continued decline in positivity and hospitalizations, right? So
I think so, and I think that, personally, I think that getting a vaccine is great. Personally, that's the way I see it, and I think it does help with herd immunity.
Absolutely.
But I also think that until it gets to children, to wait for that we have seen, and we've studied it, both of you are in our health and wellness committee, that children aren't the ones who are at risk, certainly under 12. Right. And they probably would be the last ones to get it.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, like, how many, the quicker that we can get back to, the kids being social, lunchtime is the time that they socialize with their peers the most. And, isolating kids and rushing, they already rush through lunch as it is on a normal pre-pandemic day. And to have them rushing through lunch and then throwing on a mask so they can still stay in their seat, and
Well, we're hoping that
so the quicker we can get back to,
as it gets nice out, that they will want to eat their lunch and they'll want to go outside, and we'll have opportunities for them to eat outside. we just don't want to end up quarantining 12
Right.
feet in all directions for 10 days. That's just
Right,
going to be a
right.
complete,
Yeah,
you know, it's
I agree.
better we get them in school. We really loosened up on the playgrounds and all of that. Dr. Kilgaris was really helpful with that, you know, because at first it was, you know, kids were like little soldiers, and they were great at Cottle, but now they're running around, and to see them play is just
Isn't that
so
wonderful?
exciting.
I
so
know,
great.
I know, I'm with you, with you.
It's great. Okay, well, let's move on to the discussion about the budget, but just last final word, like everybody said, we're just really, really proud of us, proud of you guys. This is, and we've been leaders, you guys have been leaders in the area on this all the way through, and this is another example of that. So couldn't be happier. So thank you very much. Thank you to everybody, you guys as well. Okay, so then, yeah, let's switch over to the budget presentation. If anyone has any comments or questions about that, we'll start, well, you kind of already started it off. Do you have any more? Are you,
No, not right now.
okay. Laura, do you have anything on that?
You know, I do have questions, but I know you're going to be giving more detailed presentations, so, you know, with that, I'll hold off. I am excited, all the new additions that are coming in, but I do have questions, but I think it's probably, I'll just wait till, right, because they're going to, am I right, you're going to have presentations on it? Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, and I don't really have anything specific.
Okay. Therese?
No, I don't have anything specific. I'm really happy to see a focus on professional learning and development. I do think that's one silver lining with the pandemic and the asynchronous days and how you guys have been able to take advantage of that. And to thank you for highlighting the math program, because that's been something that we have been talking about for years and years and years. And it's exciting to see it get the attention it needs and deserves. So thank you very much.
Yeah, again, I'm going to hold off on my questions too, but I was, just like Therese had said, I was very excited to see the addition of like ELA and the focus on math, and definitely
And the
professional
Wilson training,
development.
yeah.
I mean, it's just really great to see. It's things that we haven't seen in a while, such a focus on curriculum. So that's very exciting, and I'll hold off any questions because I might not have any after the presentation in the next 2 weeks.
Next time, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll say it too is, you know, I feel like it's really exciting presentation because since we kind of created the new strategic plan, we've done a couple of things in the last 2 years to start hitting those things, but I feel like we're really getting into the meat right now with the stuff that you put in this proposal is really hitting at the heart of the strategic plan. It's really getting at the core, and it's great. It's a lot of stuff in there about curriculum, a lot of stuff about, academics and extracurriculars and all that stuff. So really, really exciting stuff. I don't know if I missed it, but you had costs for the additional stuff, but I didn't see a summation of it. Is there a sum?
Yeah, we'll put that together once we do the budget presentation on.
Because we saw the revenue
15,
side, but we didn't
yes.
see the expense side.
We're going to have all of that. The budget part, and I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
made a mistake in the presentation, Lee clarified it, but the budget part, like the budget number part, we're doing it a lot earlier,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
because of the bond, which you might want to
Yeah,
talk about a
I'm
little bit.
I'm gonna mention that, yeah.
I just feels like you needed to understand the community and the board, the priorities in curriculum
Yeah.
instruction. There's not
I
a
only
lot
asked
of
because you did
addition.
have numbers
Yeah, I know.
broken out, but we just didn't have, you didn't have it add
I'll
up
give you
yet.
the total.
And I was just curious,
I'll do
because
the-
I know obviously from the revenue side, it doesn't look great, obviously, because we have the losses in revenue kind of cancel out the addition, so it was a little scary there. And I was just a little curious, and maybe this is more for the discussion later on, not that I never want to see us go all the way to the cap, but with those scary revenue numbers, I'm wondering why we didn't go all the way to the cap.
And when we
But we'll
talk
talk
in 2
about
weeks,
that.
I'll explain it
Yeah.
and show you how it plays out.
Okay, great. But no, but in terms of the substance of it,
And just so
Great
that
stuff.
you know, although we don't have all that, Lee has been in all these budget discussions. The administration and Lee and Faith have been a part of it all, so I don't feel that I presented anything tonight, you know, maybe tweaking here and there as we did last year as we went through the budget process. But you know, again, we have fund balance in the district. We don't want to use it all up, but we are very fortunate to have that. And we're just on such an incredible roll, and we'll still keep the district fiscally responsible as we go ahead.
yeah. Do we have a sense yet, Lee, of how much fund balance we're going to be using this year to balance this year's budget?
No, that's something that Faith and I will be working on in the
it's
next
still too
2 weeks.
premature?
Maybe we can
Okay.
get you a preliminary on, in the next meeting.
I know we'll be getting into it now as soon as we get into the heavy part of budget season, so I appreciate what you did here, which is just to give us a little preview. It's like a trailer,
This
right?
is the trailer.
This is like a movie trailer.
get you
This is so
excited.
that when we get into
was
the money
exciting.
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
I don't, and we do the curriculum part separately, we can move, the trailer, yes, we
Yeah.
can move through a lot of this because I set the stage for
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, no, it's good stuff. So I'll just mention it because you mentioned it already, Lee and Dr. Goodman, about the, just to give everybody an update on the capital project proposal that we've been talking about, Laura and I, on the facilities committee with our facility committee members who have been great. So just a little preview. Right now, it looks like we're going to have one more meeting before we actually bring it to the board for a vote and then have more public discussion. But it looks like we're landing at around about a $9.4 million bond is what we're going to be likely proposing to the larger board. And the reason why that number has gone up a little bit from the last time we had the discussion was KG&D has done a more further analysis and has identified quite a bit of infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And what we know is that capital bond is a good way to do that work in terms of getting the most bang for your buck with the state aid and all of that. Look, it seems like it's a lot of money, but I think it's everything, just like the last bond. I think everything that we're going to be putting forth in this bond is going to be really needed. I mean, really high priority things. And there's more to do, by the way. I mean, the full tag of everything, if we were to do everything we wanted to do in a district, would be like double that. So there's still more to do. But like last time, I think we're working on highlighting what really we think is very, very important for the district. And with everything we've gone through the pandemic, ventilation is a big piece of it as well. So we'll be getting into that, but just so that everybody sort of has a little bit of a preview, another trailer for next time we meet. That's probably what it's going to wind up being, somewhere around 9.4 million. But a lot of good stuff in there, really a lot of good stuff. Cafeteria and library here, obviously the Cottle Field, some more work at Cottle, and a lot of that infrastructure work as well, ventilation, things of that nature. So good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if you
No, I
have-
think, as you said, it really is a lot of the infrastructure that we were not aware of, and he really did a very thorough analysis. I mean, a lot of it is sort of piggyback. So you have these air conditioning units that are leaking, you have ceilings that are leaking, and then the only way for ventilation is opening windows, so the kids are freezing, and we know now we're compliant, and there is fresh air moving around, but you can do that through. So those are some of the things that we really sort of the must do. And then the Cottle Field is obviously a must-do. So everything really on it, and I think that the community is really looking forward to having, driving up and seeing a nice new field. And
Yep.
so I think Russ is going to come to the next meeting, is he?
Facilities
when is-
meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's come-
To present to the public, I mean. Russ.
Yeah, did we talk about Russ coming at the board
we
meeting
did.
that we're going to?
I
Yeah,
think-
I don't
I
know.
think we
Is that
did.
right?
I believe we did, but I'll
Yeah.
confirm with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just
It's a
wanted
good
to throw it
idea.
out there if anybody's watching, and they want to see the details of it. I thought we did sort of maybe discuss preliminary him coming.
Yeah, I
And
think that
might
sounds
be,
right. Yeah.
to bring pictures and so people can really see what we're talking about and what we want to propose.
Yeah, no, there'll be a lot of visual and communication about what we want to do and why we want to do it. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be good. And again, nothing fluffy in there. It's all
Right.
It's all important stuff.
Right.
And the committee's been great. A lot of good feedback from the community members that are on the committee. So anyway, so more to come on that. All right, I think that's pretty much it, right? So we can get into the business portion of our meeting. We do have a decent amount of stuff to deal with tonight on the business side. All right, so we're at, for those of you that are following along on the agenda, we're at Section C, Business of the Board. First item is to award a bid. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District accepts the lowest responsible bid for facilities management services for the 2020-2021 school year from A&A Maintenance Enterprise Incorporated at an amount not to exceed $40,000. Do I have a motion? Cynthia, second Therese. Any discussion? Ms. Lewis, this is to sort of fill the gap of losing Mr. Danko, right? Is that
That's
right?
correct. That will use Anthony Russo, most likely, who was a consultant here before Marty Danko came on board.
Right.
And he's has the ability to come back and give us a few days a week and help us work through a lot of the project work that needs to be done for the spring and into the summer.
And we'll be paying him actually on an hourly or as work basis.
Exactly.
So this 40,000 is not to exceed 40,000, doesn't mean 40,000.
Correct.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, great. Next, accept the proposal. Resolve that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District approves the proposal from Jumpstart Tutoring to provide SAT and ACT prep for the 2020-2021 school year, not to exceed $37,000. Do I have a motion? Therese, second Cynthia. Any discussion?
I actually have a question. How, is this a program that's offered to every kid? Does every kid take part in it?
Every kid who wants to takes part in it. And it's
Okay.
also through an estate donation.
Right.
Yeah,
See
actually,
that.
it's good to mention that because this is coming from funds that were transferred from the estate of the Angela Carapella Fund, so thank you very much to them, as they do every year. It's a very generous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you.
All in favor? Okay. Approve a pilot agreement. Authorize a pilot agreement, Marble Hall Tuckahoe Limited Partnership, Westchester County Industrial Development Agency. These are the Marble Hill Apartments we talked about last time. Whereas Marble Hall Tuckahoe Limited Partnership has obtained the assistance of the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency for the purposes of acquisition and refurbishment of the Marble Hall Apartments premises located at 100 Columbus Avenue in Tuckahoe, New York. And whereas the county IDA intends to acquire an interest in the Marble Hill Apartments premises, thereby rendering said property exempt from real property taxation. And whereas, as a condition of the county IDA's involvement in a tax-exempt status to be assigned to the Marble Hall Apartments premises, MHTLP has agreed to enter into an agreement providing for the payment of monies in lieu of taxes that would be otherwise levied against the property. This is the pilot agreement. And whereas the pilot agreement will provide for the payment of monies on an annual basis to the affecting taxing jurisdictions, including the Tuckahoe Union Free School District, over a 35-year term, commencing with the Tuckahoe Union Free School District's 2022 and 2023 fiscal year. And whereas the payment structure to be implemented in this pilot agreement is based in substantial part upon the actual amount of real property taxes levied against the Marble Hall Apartments premises immediately prior to the inception of the pilot agreement's term. And whereas NHTLP will be required to renovate, maintain, and operate the Marble Hall Apartments premises as an affordable and income-restricted housing resource over the aforementioned 35-year period. And whereas the Board of Education has obtained the advice and assistance of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District's council concerning the pilot agreement and its terms, and whereas the Village of Tuckahoe has assented to the pilot agreement and it is anticipated that the town of Eastchester will do the same, and whereas the Board of Education deems it advisable to consent to and approve the pilot agreement, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes its president and the district superintendent to take those steps necessary to implement the pilot agreement, including execution of all documents associated therewith. Do I have a motion? Cynthia, second Laura. Any discussion or comment? We've talked about this at length before. Anybody have any other questions or comments? All in favor? All right. This is the amended agreement. Whereas on 12/17/2007, the Tuckahoe Union Free School District contracted with AFLAC to provide health care, independent care, flexible spending arrangements for eligible employees, and whereas the Federal Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021 contains provisions that allow entities with health care, independent care, flexible spending arrangements to the discretion to implement certain plan design changes for plan years ending in 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District hereby authorizes an amendment of its agreement with AFLAC dated 12/17/2007 to allow eligible and/or enrolled members of the district's health care and dependent care flexible spending arrangements to make election changes for both health care and dependent care flexible spending arrangement contribution amounts for the plan year ending in 2021, regardless of existing change in status rules, and be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools, the assistant superintendent for business, and the district's treasurer are hereby authorized and empowered to individually take all actions necessary to implement the purposes of this resolution. Do I have a motion? Cynthia, second. Lori, any discussion or comments? Do you want to say anything about that?
This is just something that because of the pandemic, normally you can't make any changes to your flexible spending account because of the IRS rules during, once you've elected to do whatever you want to or not want to do. But due to the pandemic, they are allowing any changes to be made as long as we amend the agreement for this year, for 1 year only.
Okay, very good. All in favor? Okay, approve an agreement. Resolved to approve an agreement with the Westchester County Board of Elections for voting machines for the May 18th, 2021 budget vote. Do I have a motion? Therese, second. Lori, any discussion, or this is pretty straightforward? Good. All in favor? Okay, approve modified high-risk sport. Whereas Section 1 of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has determined to commence the sports season of certain sports that are considered high risk for exposure to COVID-19, and whereas Section 1 and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has made the determination based upon orders of Governor Cuomo and guidance from the New York State Department of Health, and whereas the New York State and local county departments of health has provided information regarding health and safety for student athletes and coaches participating in these sports, and whereas there is an expressed interest from student athletes in fielding teams in certain of these sports. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District hereby approves the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to offer boys modified football high-risk sport at the Tuckahoe Middle School for students in grades 7 and 8 subject to adherence to any and all guidance issued by the New York State and County Departments of Health in Section 1 and/or the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, and be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools and the interim assistant principal of student services and athletics are directed to ensure that each student athlete has expressed permission to participate in these sports from their parent and/or guardian, and that such notification contains inherent risk factors associated with participating in these sports and transmission of COVID-19. And be it further resolved that any sport offered by the district shall be suspended should the Tuckahoe Middle School move from its hybrid learning model to an all-remote model due to COVID-19 concerns. Do I have a motion? Lori, second. Therese, any discussion or comments? So this just came through today,
We
actually,
probably
right?
should change
I
it
was
from
gonna say
hybrid
that.
learning model to maybe
Full-time.
full-time in person.
Right.
And
From its
hy- and
hybrid learning,
Maybe, I guess,
no,
actually-
from its full-time, well, I guess it's kind of
I guess
hybrid,
it's
because
hybrid.
there's some remote
yeah, I
learners.
think, yeah, I think we should keep it like that, because that's probably saying that we would have to go to an all-remote. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so this is obviously good news, and you just got this news today, so this was just
We
added.
got this
Yeah.
news this morning. I feel like we're the only district that got this news, because when I mentioned it to some people, they didn't get it. But we did see that Section 1 voted on it this morning. So we wanted to move quickly, because we know how much kids want to play 7th and 8th grade
Yeah.
football. And it would start, I think we'd have to appoint the coaches on the 15th, because I think it starts February 16th. So that's why we wanted to.
March.
I'm sorry, March.
March, yeah.
Sorry, we're in March. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is good, it's good
Yeah,
news.
it's great
More
news.
stuff coming back.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, next we go on to Section D, which is personnel recommendations. Resolved to accept personnel action items A through D as outlined below. Do I have a motion? Therese, second. Laura, any discussions or comments about
So
A
are we,
through D?
so are we going to have a play? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, that's obvious, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to see
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's great.
great, all in favor? Okay, next item is a really exciting one, confer tenure. Resolved that the Board of Education of Tuckahoe Union Free School District, on a recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, confer tenure upon John Morash in the tenure area of principal at the William E. Cottle Elementary School, effective June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion? Therese, second. Cynthia, discussion. I know you have a few words to say.
So it gives me great pleasure to recommend to the Board of Education to bestow tenure upon Principal John Morash. Mr. Morash has served as principal of the William E. Cottle School and came to the district with nearly 20 years of experience as an educator and several years as an administrator. He has consistently shown his leadership skills and has done an excellent, outstanding job collaborating with faculty and staff to work towards our goal of excellence for all students. Among his many attributes is Mr. Morash's ability to work with all stakeholders. With his students are really at the heart of everything he does. Parents and staff appreciate his most approachable manner and always keeping his focus on finding the best solution for all those involved. Whether it's, and you've seen, changing the drop-off and pick-up procedure, Mr. Morash breaks down the task so that it can be done with incredible fidelity. With keen precision, he departmentalized the 5th grader class in 1 year. He comes here and does that. As he has incorporated every new curriculum initiative, including iReady, Foundations, Envision, novel studies, and he works with his team. He doesn't work alone. He works with the team, and the teachers and the staff work together, whether it's RTI or one of these curriculum initiatives, to put the best plan in place. Mr. Morash, again, brings together and collaborates with his team, staff, and the fabulous Mr. Kilgallen, and they continually tweak all the programs to ensure that we have what works best for students. Mr. Morash is versatile, communicative, hardworking, innovative, and he really cares and loves this district. During this past year of unprecedented issues relating to the pandemic, Mr. Morash has shown his dedication by working tirelessly, and I can vouch for that, whether day or night, till midnight or on weekends, to manage every and all concerns. He has dealt with many sensitive situations and has demonstrated fairness, transparency, and a willingness to collaborate on creative approaches to problem solving. Mr. Morash exhibits a great sense of initiative, impeccable communication skills, and a can-do attitude that is infectious to all who work with him. He believes in his Cottle Cubs and will continue to improve teaching and learning in the elementary school. It just gives me great pleasure, and I'm sure congratulations from his whole staff. I've heard today that they had a little celebration to Mr. Morash on this recommendation for tenure, which I'm sure you'll achieve. And we look forward to many years of collaboration with this district, because Mr. Morash is an outstanding educator and he's an outstanding leader.
Thank you. I also have a statement from Ms. Mealy that I wanted to, she's the PTA president, that I'd like to read, and then I have a comment as well. So this is from Ms. Mealy, the PTA president. The Tuckahoe PTA wishes to extend heartfelt congratulations to Mr. Morash on achieving tenure in the Tuckahoe district. We especially appreciate Mr. Morash's leadership at Cottle through this unprecedented era, and he's somehow managed to navigate without dropping his smile and positive attitude. We look forward to many more years to come. As Ms. Mealy. For myself, I mean, I don't have any prepared comments, but, you know, I'll just say that I was fortunate enough to be around when you first came to the district, and I'll never forget the day that you came and were appointed, because of the amount of folks that came from your previous district, and we knew right then and there we got somebody really, really good. But really, even more telling to me from that, and Dr. Goodman already hit on a few of it, is that you have been battle-tested. That's how I look at it. You've been battle-tested. I mean, when you think about the bus scheduling stuff you had to deal with when you first got here, departmentalization, seeing the Cottle School through the construction project, and that wasn't easy. There was a lot of issues with noise and things of that nature, and of course, the pandemic. Through all of that, you've shined. And so when this came up to the board, this was a no-brainer for us. It really was. And as Dr. Goodman already mentioned, we're really looking forward to you being here for a lot longer, and we see you as a leader, and we see you as part of the future of Tuckahoe. So thank you very much.
Can I
Sure,
add something to that? So I was one of those tried by the fire persons that came in. I was totally against the departmentalization. Therese and I both for reasons that really didn't have a whole lot to do with you, just what we have been dealing with at the time. And so you came in at a very interesting time. But the departmentalization worked out pretty well. I think it's getting better and better from what I hear, and so that's always good. And the one piece that I really appreciated in that was that as a parent, when there were issues concerning, for example, the math program that we need to look at and do better with, you invited parents to come in. I was at those meetings to come in and talk about concerns with the math program. So it wasn't just you and a couple of people sitting around a table. It was full involvement of the school community. And that's what I think is so important that we do in this district, that we understand it's a community and it's made up of all these different pieces. And these are all people that, without us all working together collaboratively, not much is going to happen positively for our students. And so for that, I commend you and I thank you. And I'm so proud of you and excited for what you will continue to bring to the district.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo what everybody said, and I think, yeah, the most important thing is what a team player you are and how you just sort of listen and value everybody's, you hear everybody's voice and always have the kids at heart. So for me, I'm very excited to see, you know, what's to become of your future, and I hope to see you here for many years to come.
Great. All right.
Me?
Anybody else?
Okay.
Do you have anything to say, or you're?
No, I of course have something to say.
All right, go ahead.
Silly question. Come on, Pete. No. Mr. Morash, so I served as the COTA liaison. I got to know you a little bit better then. I will say that this is one of the highlights of my short board tenure, is being able to vote on your tenure. Mm-hmm. You really are such a gift to this district, and I think that in addition to what everybody else has said, when I look at how you lead with empathy, you're humble, and you're real, and people know that, and you've gained the respect of everybody, and you never fail to recognize that you're only as strong as the people around you and who support you, and you've had 100% buy-in. And you and Mr. Kilgallen together have done remarkable things in that school in a relatively short period of time. So I'm proud to sit here to be able to tenure you, and it is so well-deserved. So congratulations.
Great.
I have to go after all the.
Yeah, I know. What else is there?
There's nothing left. Echo everything. Thank you very much for putting me last. But no, really, congratulations, Mr. Morash. I'm super excited to vote on your tenure tonight, and you, along with Mr. Kilgallen, have done tremendous things for Cottle and for the children there and for the parents there. You have brought such a measured and leadership, really, that everybody is so much benefiting from. So please continue to be that leader for us, and we look forward to many years together. So congratulations and thank you.
Great, and thank you to your family as well, and your wife is watching. Thank you for sharing Mr. Morash with us. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favor? All right, congratulations. A few words. Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
You can take
You
it
can
off.
take it off. You have plenty of distance. Yeah.
Yes.
So, thank you so much. Start off for those very, very kind words. A special thank you to all members, former and current members of the Tuckahoe Board of Education, and of course, a special thank you to you, Dr. Goodman, for your trust and tenure and your confidence since I've started working in Tuckahoe. As we all know, this has been a particularly challenging period for all people in education. The last year has required a tremendous amount of effort, collaboration, and teamwork for administrators, especially teachers, as well as staff, students, and families. Tuckahoe, and especially Cottle, has been a shining example of what can be accomplished even under the most difficult of circumstances. If it was not obvious before this year, it is certainly obvious now that the William E. Cottle teachers, staff, students, and our amazing assistant principal, Mr. Peter Kilgallen, are exceptional in every way. And I am most grateful to them for making me a better administrator and for always putting students first. Pre-pandemic, we had accomplished a tremendous amount at Cottle, rolling out new programs, completing a construction project, developing a new model for upper elementary education, and much more. Now that we have weathered what we hope is the worst of the pandemic storm, we look forward to continuing to advance Cottle to be the best, the very best elementary school in the region. And with the continued support of this Board of Education, we will do just that. So again, I sincerely thank everyone at Cottle and everyone in Tuckahoe from the bottom of my heart, and I look forward to seeing everyone again at the next meeting, where we'll be talking about novel studies and literacy at Cottle with Mr. Keogh. So very excited for that, and then many years to come in Tuckahoe. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, great. So next we have to approve a side letter agreement. Resolved that the Board of Education of Tuckahoe Union Free School District hereby approves the side letter agreement dated February 24, 2021 by and between the district and the Tuckahoe Teachers Association, and authorizes the superintendent to execute the same. Do I have a motion? Therese, second. Cynthia, any discussion about this? All in favor of the side letter? Resolved that the Board of Education of the Tuckahoe Union Free School District hereby approves the side letter agreement dated January 29, 2021 by and between the district and the Tuckahoe Teachers Association, and authorizes the superintendent to execute the same. Do I have a motion? Therese, second. Lori, all in favor? All right, and that was our last item. So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Therese, second. Cynthia, all in favor? All right, great, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Morash.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.